Joining us tonight, Carol Giacomo, a member of the editorial board of the New York Times, and Walter Russell Mead, a Henry A. Kissinger Senior Fellow for U.S. Foreign Policy at the Council on Foreign Relations here in New York. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Carol, let me start by asking you, why has Somalia become a focal point of international piracy?
You know, it's interesting. This problem with piracy in Somalia has been ongoing actually for a number of years. Last year alone, there were at least 75 ships that were boarded and held by pirates. Now, though it's in the news and seems to be capturing much more attention because there's it was an American ship that was seized and an American captain who is still being held by the pirates.
Walter, the Horn of Africa is a known haven for terrorists. Is there a threat to the United States and to international shipping routes? Does Al-Qaeda have a presence in Somalia?
Well, I'm sure there are some relations, but what most people say about this piracy business is it's a pretty commercial enterprise. It's traditional piracy. They're doing it for the money. Now that suggests that this might be an opportunity to really try to go in and convince them that it's not as good a business as they thought it was. And we may see, particularly if more U.S. ships are taken, that the Obama administration will use this as an opportunity to kind of show that the U.S. can respond in a dramatic way.
Do you really think that's what Obama should be using his time doing? I mean, he has so many other huge issues on his plate, and Somalia is I mean, it's a systemic problem. The piracy is a symptom of a failed state where there is no other economy and where these brigands really have been creative, and I use that in a sort of ironic sense, at trying to get money, and they've been very successful at it. So the question is, I mean, is it appropriate for the American military to go in? I don't think so.
Right. Well, let's move on to the UK-related terror arrests. President Obama, when he was talking to his NATO allies, was saying that the terror threat is much larger there in Europe than it is in the United States. First of all, do you agree with that?
It's certainly true, as we've seen from these arrests in the UK recently, that there's a very small minority, but nevertheless a significant group of people in the UK in particular, who are in some kind of sympathy with some of the violent extremists. Some of this has to do because of a lot of immigration from Pakistan, which, as we know, is one of the most troubled countries in the world. So there is clearly a problem of some kind.
I did talk to a senior U.S. official today who said that they have evidence of Europeans who are in safe havens in Pakistan, and apparently they've got some intelligence that they're a direct threat to Europe. I mean, he wouldn't be more specific, but...
But what do you think sort of generally are the root causes of the militancy in the United Kingdom compared to, say, other parts of Europe? Or do you think this is a problem that extends to France and to Spain and to Italy and to Germany in the same way that it does to the United Kingdom?
I mean, it's very different in all of these countries. There have been a lot of immigrants into Europe from countries with an Islamic culture for quite some time. But, for example, the Turks and the Kurds who live in Germany are generally speaking not extremist in their religious views.
But do you think it's also to do with the model of integration, that perhaps it hasn't been as successful in parts of Europe compared to the United States? I mean, is it about the kind of stake that these minorities feel that they have in the mainstream culture?
Well, again, in Germany, where you don't have a real model of assimilation, relations between the Turks in Germany and the majority Germans are reasonably good. In the UK, the relations between Pakistanis and others are quite fraught. On the other hand, in the UK, a lot of immigrants from the West Indies, from Jamaica, have really integrated pretty well over the last 30 years. So I think it's easy for us Americans to say, oh, we have a much better immigration model than all these other people. But in fact, the situation in Europe is very complicated.
What about you, Carol? Do you agree?
Well, I mean, clearly there's an economic component to all of this. I mean, most of these immigrants are not doing very well and seem to have a much harder time rising.
And briefly, North Korea and Iran's nuclear ambitions, both in the news again this week. Where is this policy going? Rapprochement or no rapprochement?
Well, there are two different, there are two different situations. One, the North Koreans, the United States does have a recent history of engagement with the North Koreans, and presumably at some point they're going to need to get back into talks with the North Koreans, because that's really the only way to try to deal with this problem. And with Iran, this is very new. They're just beginning this re-engagement after 30 years of diplomatic isolation, and where it will go, I'm not really sure.
Right, Walter, confrontation or negotiation?
Well, possibly both. The negotiations with the North Koreans haven't led to great results. We've had several administrations try. The problem seems to be that North Korea's got only one crop it can grow that the rest of the world will pay for, and that's nuclear weapons. And so what they would need to do is sell their ability to make nuclear weapons, in a sense, so that we will pay them off so that they don't make them. The trouble is, the next year comes along, they need a new crop. So it's been so far a pretty unsatisfactory state of affairs. In Iran, you have the problem that there appears to be a pretty broad consensus in Iran that further progress toward nuclear weapons is very much kind of an Iranian national aspiration. So whether we have any carrots that are attractive enough or any sticks that are fearsome enough to change that Iranian behavior is an open question. I think it's a great idea to explore the possibilities and to negotiate, because you can't really tell what will happen until you do.
Okay, well, thank you to both of you for your perspectives. Carol Giacomo and Walter Russell Mead, thank you very much.
Thank you.